right, golf fans, get ready to dive deep because today we're going to break down the swing of a true golf superstar, Rory McIlroy. Coming at you fresh off his 2025 Players' Championship win. And we're going to be looking at some amazing 3D data captured by Sportsbox AI. So we're going to see exactly how he generates so much power and consistency in his swing. But here's the best part. We're not just going to geek out on data for data's sake. We're going to uncover those actionable insights that you can use to improve your own game no matter your skill level.
You know, what I think is really interesting about this data is that it might challenge some of the traditional advice that a lot of golfers hear over the years. I mean, we're going to see how Rory, one of the longest hitters in the game, actually uses movement in ways you might not expect.
Okay, you've got me intrigued. Let's tee off with this idea of pelvic sway. Most golfers are taught to stay centered and avoid too much lateral movement, right?
Right, exactly. The classic advice is to create a stable base. But get this, Rory actually incorporates a pretty significant amount of controlled sway. We're talking about 7.2 inches of lateral movement.
Whoa, hold on, 7.2 inches. That seems like a lot. Wouldn't that throw off his balance and his consistency?
That's the thing, it's controlled. It's not just swaying wildly. So in the backswing, he shifts his pelvis about 2.1 inches away from the target. And then as he comes through impact, his pelvis moves 5.1 inches towards the target.
Oh, so he's almost using that movement, kind of like storing up energy.
Exactly. Think of it like coiling and uncoiling a spring. That lateral shift helps him build up all that energy in the backswing and then just unleash it explosively through impact.
So that's got to be a big part of how he generates that crazy clubhead speed that we see.
It's a huge factor. It's a really powerful way to transfer energy into the swing. Now, this doesn't mean you should go out and just start swaying all over the place. It's more about finding the right balance and control for your own swing.
So, of course, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, but it definitely challenges the idea that you need to just stay perfectly still to generate power. So we've talked about lateral movement, but what about vertical movement? Is he using the ground in a unique way as well?
You bet he is. So Rory uses vertical movement to kind of tap into these ground reaction forces. It's similar to how a powerful jump relies on pushing off the ground. Now, in Rory's backswing, his pelvis actually drops about 2.4 inches.
Wait a second, he drops down. I always thought you want to stay tall and maintain your posture.
It seems counterintuitive, right? But that downward movement is actually setting him up for a much more powerful upward thrust. As he comes into impact, his pelvis rises 1.4 inches, so a total of 3 inches of vertical motion.
So he's using the ground kind of like a springboard to launch himself upwards and adding even more power to the swing.
Exactly. It's like loading up that spring in the backswing and then bam, releasing it as he drives through the ball.
It's amazing how these small movements can make such a huge difference in generating power, but we've only scratched the surface here, right? There's still this whole other piece of the puzzle, the mysterious X factor.
Yes, the X factor. This one really gets into the world of rotation and how Rory creates this incredible torque in his swing.
Okay, break it down for me. What exactly is this X factor?
So at its core, it's the difference in rotation between your upper and lower body during your swing. Imagine your torso and your hips kind of as separate units. As you rotate back, your upper body twists further than your lower body. And that creates this kind of stretch or a coil.
Like winding up a rubber band, right? The more you stretch it, the more potential energy it has.
Exactly. And then when you release that stretch at impact, you get this burst of power. Now, Rory is a master of this. In his backswing, he achieves a remarkable negative 70 degrees of X factor. So that means his torso is rotated 70 degrees more than his pelvis.
70 degrees, wow. That's a lot of separation.
It is. But here's the really interesting part. During that transition from backswing to downswing, he actually increases that stretch to negative 77 degrees. So he's adding even more coil right before he unleashes everything.
Wow, so he's not just unwinding, he's actually like adding more as he goes down.
Exactly. And then at that crucial moment of impact, he closes that gap between his upper and lower body rotation to just 5 degrees. That rapid closing of the X factor is what unleashes all that stored energy into the ball.
This is blowing my mind. So it's not just about how much you rotate, it's about how you manage that separation between your upper and lower body. But wouldn't all that twisting put so much stress on his body?
That's a great question, and it brings up a very important point. Rory's swing is incredibly efficient. He's not muscling the club through impact. He's using his body's natural movements to generate power while minimizing stress on his body.
Okay, I'm starting to see why Rory is such a force on the golf course. But how can the average golfer apply these principles? I mean, we're not all built like Rory or blessed with his athleticism. So we've seen how these three key elements, pelvic sway, vertical movement, and maximizing the X factor, all work together to give Rory that incredible power off the tee.
It's like a perfectly choreographed dance. Every movement flows seamlessly into the next.
Absolutely. It's beautiful to watch. And what I think is really cool is that these principles, they're not just for driving, right? You can apply them to every single club in the bag.
You got it. It's about understanding how to generate that energy efficiently and how to transfer it, no matter what shot you're hitting. For example, think back to that pelvic sway we were talking about. It's crucial for shifting your weight correctly throughout your swing. And that helps you make solid contact with any club, not just the driver.
And using the ground for power, like we saw with Rory's vertical movement, that's got to be key for those crisp iron shots, the ones that seem to fly forever.
Oh, absolutely. That upward push from the ground adds a ton of zip to your irons. And it really helps you compress the ball, which gives you those penetrating trajectories that you want.
Okay, I'm with you on those two. But what about the X factor? How does that translate to, say, a delicate chip shot around the green? Surely you wouldn't want that much separation between your upper and lower body for a finesse shot, right?
You're right, you wouldn't need as much separation for a chip shot. But the underlying principle of storing and releasing energy still applies. Even just a small amount of X factor can create that whip-like action through impact. And that's going to help you control the distance and the trajectory of your chip.
So even on those shorter shots, it's about finding that balance, coiling and uncoiling,
All right.
using your body's natural movement to generate and release that energy.
Exactly. It's all about efficiency and control. Now, let's zoom out a bit. Let's think about these principles in the context of your overall swing.
Okay, I like where this is going.
Well, picture your swing like a chain reaction.
Hmm.
Each movement influences the next one. And if you have one link in that chain that's weak, it can throw off the entire system.
So if I'm not properly using my pelvic sway, it could then affect my vertical movement, and then that messes up my X factor, and it ultimately leads to a bad shot.
That's the idea. It's all interconnected. That's why understanding these fundamental principles and how they all work together is so crucial. It really impacts your consistency and accuracy.
So it's not just about hitting the ball farther, it's about developing a more holistic and efficient approach to the swing.
Precisely. And that's what's so fascinating about studying Rory's swing. It's not just about copying his exact movements. It's about understanding the principles behind them and then applying them to your own swing.
Right, you're taking inspiration from the best and figuring out how to optimize your own game based on that.
Exactly. And what's really cool is that once you start to really internalize these principles, they can actually have a really positive impact on your mental game as well as your physical game.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, think about it. When you have a clear understanding of how your swing works, you gain a sense of control. You're not just out there guessing or hoping for the best. You have a system. You have something to rely on.
So instead of getting overwhelmed by all the different moving parts, you can just focus on one element at a time and know that each piece fits into that larger puzzle.
Exactly. And that can make a huge difference in your confidence, especially when you're under pressure.
That makes a lot of sense. If you trust your swing, you can relax and focus on other aspects of the game, like course management or strategy.
And you're less likely to let a bad shot or two really rattle you because you know that you have the tools to make adjustments and get right back on track. It's like having a mental blueprint that guides you through each swing.
I like that analogy. So it's not just about mechanics, it's about developing a more complete understanding of the game, both physically and mentally.
Exactly. And that's really what sets those great players apart from the good ones. They have that deep understanding and they're able to stay calm and focused even when things get tough.
Speaking of great players, we've talked a lot about Rory's swing today, but are these principles only applicable to elite golfers like him? Can the average weekend warrior really benefit from this kind of analysis?
That's a great question. And the answer is absolutely they can. I mean, that's the beauty of these fundamental principles. They're so adaptable. It's not about trying to perfectly mimic Rory's movements. It's about understanding how these principles work and then figuring out how to apply them to your own unique swing.
So it's more about finding your own version of those principles rather than trying to be a Rory clone.
Exactly. We all have different body types, different strengths, flexibility levels. The key is to experiment, find what feels comfortable and efficient for you, and then you can gradually start working on refining those movements over time.
So it's a journey of self-discovery in a way. You're using these principles as a guide, but ultimately you're finding your own path to a better swing.
I love that. That's a great way to put it. And honestly, the more you learn about these principles, the more equipped you'll be to make those adjustments and really fine-tune your swing.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into Rory's swing secrets, what's the one big takeaway you want our listeners to walk away with today?
I think the most important thing is to kind of shift your perspective on the swing. Instead of thinking about it as just a series of isolated movements, start viewing it as a more dynamic, interconnected system.
So like we talked about, it's a chain reaction. Everything influences everything else.
Precisely. And when you start to see the swing in this way, you realize that even small adjustments can make a huge difference. They can have this ripple effect that leads to some pretty significant improvements in your overall game.
It's not about trying to copy a pro's swing perfectly. It's more about understanding those underlying principles, experimenting, and figuring out what works best for your body and your swing.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a process of exploration, refinement, and, constant learning. But the more you invest in really understanding your own swing, the more rewarding that journey is going to be.
Well, folks, as we tee off into this world of golf swing mechanics, remember, it's not about mimicking, it's about understanding. It's not about perfection, it's about progress. And most importantly, it's about enjoying that journey of discovering your own unique swing.
Well said. And hey, who knows, maybe one day we'll be analyzing your swing for all its secrets.
I wouldn't mind that. But for now, I'm just going to keep practicing, keep experimenting, always trying to learn more and improve my game. And to all our listeners out there, keep swinging, keep learning, and most importantly, have fun out there on the course.
Until next time, happy golfing, everyone.